And the thing is, I hate this yarn. I had never used it before. I am sad to be using it now. Hello knitting friends, welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Kristen, and today I've got a traditional podcast episode for you. So a finished object, a few whips, including some fails, and a few acquisitions. So grab your project and let's dive in. All right, knitting friends, it is the last Saturday of the month, which means it is time for a catch up on all of the projects I've been working on throughout the month. One that I have finished and several others that are still in progress, and at least one that's going to be frogged. So let's start with my finished object. I have finished my Petite Pointelle Tank. I will put some kind of B-roll video in here so you can see how it actually fits. And I forgot my iPad. Hang on a second. All right, now I've got my iPad so we can get into all of the project details. So the Petite Pointelle Tank is a pattern by Jessie May Martinson of Jessie May Designs that she just published last month or the month before. And while in general I haven't really been all into the pointelle stuff, it really caught my eye and I decided immediately that I needed this project in my life. So I used the yarn recommended in the pattern for this, which is the Wandering Flock Cotton Lino. And that is a sport weight, 35% cotton, 30% bombyx, which I believe is silk, 20% linen, and 15% alpaca. So I started this project on May 3rd and finished it on June 24th. Not too bad. As always, I am not a monogamous knitter. I always have a lot of projects going on, so I am really not a good guide for how long projects could or should take. I did, I believe, alter my needle size for this. So the recommended needles are a US 4 throughout and then a US 2 for all of the trim. And I did a 4 when I was working flat, but went up to a 5 for working in the round, and I used a US 3 for the trim. This is a lovely pattern. The pattern is very clear. It has charts, which I love. I am a big chart person. I don't want to have to read through line by line instructions. I want to see the chart and just glance at it if I've lost my place or whatever. I will also say, once you are finished all of the shaping and you have joined the body in the round, which is straight, this is also very easy to memorize, so it can be kind of an on-the-go project. But overall, pattern, wonderful. So I knit the size 2/3. For the first part here, up until the underarm join, there are 6 sizes. And then once you get to the underarm part, it expands to be like 9 or 10 sizes. So I knit the size, well, it starts out as a 2 and then ultimately the 3 in the body, which is 39-inch full chest circumference measurement. I ended up using 1.7 skeins of the yarn, so that's about 557 yards. And I did lengthen it a little bit. So if you were not going to add any additional length, because you can see in the original pattern photos, it's pretty cropped. If you were not going to add any additional length, you would use less, presumably. So I did end up with the correct full bust measurement in the end, which is about 39 inches. That gives me about an inch of ease, of positive ease at the full bust. This did expand a lot with blocking. So as I said, I ultimately lengthened it probably by about 2 inches, maybe 3. And once it was washed and blocked, it really grew lengthwise. And of course, the pattern itself is very stretchy as well. So it could expand widthwise. I probably could have stretched it more widthwise to shorten up the length. Then I would have had more positive ease here, but I'm okay with the ease that's here. Also, my bind off, so there is a scalloped hem bind off. It looks really cute, but it was a little tight, so I really couldn't stretch it out too much widthwise ultimately. So this is a little bit longer than maybe ideal. I probably did not need to lengthen it quite so much. I didn't want it to be as cropped as it is in the photos, but I wouldn't mind if it were, I don't know, an inch and a half shorter than it ended up, but I'm not gonna like rip out and no, I'm not gonna do any of that. I will wear it as it is. So the yarn is, as I said, the Wandering Flock Cotton Lino. That is the yarn that is recommended in the pattern, and it is, as you heard, a 4-fiber blend that does have some alpaca. It's a little pricklier than I thought. Like, it's fine now, but when I first put it on, I was like, I don't know. It is a little warm. It does have some alpaca. It's a sport weight, but it also has a lot of eyelets, so it's a little warmer than I anticipated. I am inside in the air conditioning. Even here, it's a little warm, but it does tend to be very warm up here in my studio crafting space, despite the air conditioning being on. When I took some of the photos outside in the shade with a breeze, it was very comfortable. So next week when it's like 95 degrees, I probably will not be wearing this. Today it's 85. That's a little bit more reasonable. I don't know what that is in the Celsius, but I'll try to put something in here. I think it's like 30 Celsius. It's okay for today. Again, in the super hot heat of summer, even with the eyelets, I think with the alpaca it would be a little bit warm. So I was thinking the alpaca was going to make it a little bit softer. It's still, I mean, it definitely feels like a plant fiber, feels like a soft cotton. It definitely doesn't feel like a linen, which is good. We'll get into that. It was fine to knit. It's, you know, it's still, even with the alpaca is not a very elastic fiber. So you're still not getting sort of the ease of knitting with something like wool that is very elastic and is easier on your hands. It wasn't hard on my hands, definitely. Especially compared to some of the other fibers I've been trying to work with this summer, but it definitely wasn't gonna like mistake it for wool or anything. Overall, this was a really nice project. I'm very happy with the finished results. It is beautiful and comfortable. I did end up using the same color that is used in the pattern photos, which wasn't necessarily my intention. I don't think it looks like super great now, but I think later in the summer when I have a nice tan, like after we get back from the beach, I think it'll look nicer. You just now it's just kind of making me look a little bit washed out, but what are you gonna do? So overall, very happy with this project. Got it done in about 6 weeks-ish, maybe 7 weeks, which isn't too bad. And let's see, the yarn is $28 a skein, and I used less than 2 skeins, so that's, you know, about $56 for the finished project, which isn't too bad, but it's definitely, you know, if I wanted to knit a winter project with a kind of luxury yarn, that's a much bigger investment. Using kind of a nice, you know, hand dye luxury yarn for a summer project, you get a lower overall cost, which is, I think, a nice way to work some kind of fancy yarns into your projects without having to break the bank. So I do think I would use this yarn again. Unfortunately, most, I think, summery projects come in around a fingering weight, and I don't love to wear anything heavier than a fingering weight for summer projects either, because of the weather that we have here. Sport weight is just a little bit heavier. It's not bad. They're just, you know, in general, aren't a ton of sport weight patterns, you know, as compared to some of the other yarn weights. And it definitely, you can feel it's just a little bit heavier than the fingering weight, but it is definitely a yarn I would use again, but probably more of a early summer, late summer, early fall, late spring kind of fiber, not something I want to be wearing next month when it's 90 degrees again. Ooh, I don't like. So, a finished object, Petite Pointelle Tank, love it. Great pattern. If you want to jump on the Pointelle bandwagon, I think it's a great place to start. So, a finished object. I'm doing pretty well this year. I've had at least one finished object each month, which, given my propensity for startitis and juggling multiple projects, I think it's pretty good. So one finished object. Let's jump in and talk about some works in progress. So what order do I want to do this in? Let's start with the one that's not a fail. So this is the one, other than the tank, that I have been working on mostly this month. This is a project that I started last summer and has been going very slowly. So I did like put it away, during the winter. But it regardless has been going very slowly because it is knit on US 2 and US 1.5 needles. I think it's actually supposed to be knit on 0. I don't have size 0 needles. I think it's supposed to be done on like 0 and 1, but that was never going to happen. So this is my pie camisole. This is a pattern by, I'm sorry, I do not remember. I will put the name here. And as I said, this one has been a little slow going, but I have put it back on the needles. And this is the front. And I am almost done the collar. And then, will you focus? There we go. And then after that, it will be, straight stockinette. I am thinking about putting bust darts into this. I want to do a video about bust darts next month, and I would like to have an example. And I think, because this is designed to be close fitting, so in most garments, I'm kind of right on the edge of needing bust darts. If it's an oversized fit, it's not really necessary. With garments that are supposed to be a closer fit, it can help a little bit. So I don't know if it actually needs the bust darts, but because it is supposed to be closer fitting, I think it's a good candidate. But I need to finish the collar so that I can try it on and see if, because I did work a little bit on the body and I may actually be past the point where I would need to put the bust darts in. So I need to figure that out. So the yarn that I'm using for this is Amano Yarns Chesky. That is a wool cotton blend. Let me see if I can find it because I don't remember off the top of my head. So this is another project that is not going to be really for the deep summer, but for sort of the transitional period. So the Chesky is 60% superwash merino, 30% Pima cotton, 10% linen. So you can see the blend of fibers gives it a little bit of heathering. And this is a fingering weight, it's on the heavy side for a fingering weight yarn. So it's 100 grams, 383 yards. And the colorway, it just has color numbers. So it's 1708, but it doesn't have a color name. If you look it up on their website, they probably do have a name for it. As I said, this has been very, very slow going because of the tiny, tiny needles. But I think it will be a nice project in the end. So I did make a little bit of an adjustment here on the front. I don't know if you can see. I think you can. So I added short rows to the front to curve the neckline a little bit because there are no short rows written into the pattern. And it just kind of goes, in a circle. And then it has the ribbon coming up, and you can see in a lot of people's finished photos, they're getting like a little bit of waviness, some bulges here where that ribbon doesn't want to lie flat because your neck isn't flat, it's curved. So I added some short rows to the front to help pull that down a little bit so that the ribbon can lie closer to the neck in the front. I also picked up fewer stitches along the front neckline. So you're supposed to pick up 1 for 1. I didn't really calculate anything. I just skipped a few here and there to pick up fewer stitches right along the front, which again will hopefully result in the ribbing stretching a little bit so that you don't get kind of a bumpy, bulgy thing there, which I didn't want. You definitely can't see it in, everybody's projects, but enough of them had it that I thought I could take some remedial measures and, if I didn't need them, fine. But now that they're done, I won't have to worry about it, hopefully. So I haven't done any, blocking or anything with this. Again, all of the ribbing here is being done on a US 1, so it is pretty slow going. There is some fiddliness with the collar, so you pick up along the armhole ribbing, and then here it's like for the part that ultimately is going to kind of stretch over here, you pick up, you cut your yarn and you add new yarn and you anchor the new yarn into the stitch. I don't really get why that was done. I don't know if ultimately it means that this part will look neater. It does look pretty neat and tidy, so maybe that's why. I don't know if it was really necessary, but I didn't want to skip it and find out that it was. So as I said, it does look very neat and tidy around those edges, which I think is going to be pretty key. So even now, the ribbing is very, an easy sit in front of the TV project. The stockinette part will be. As I said, I'm going to see if I can incorporate some bust darts in here, so I will have them as an example for the bust darts video that I want to do, because I do want to chat a little bit about bust darts. They are becoming, I think, more common, which if you need them is good. If you don't need them, it's a lot of extra kind of fluff in your pattern that may just end up confusing you. Ultimately, I think it's a great idea for each individual knitter to kind of make that determination whether you need bust darts in certain patterns, and then to learn how to incorporate them on your own. As I said, I want to do a video about that, and we'll see, but I think this is going to be a candidate for having a little bit of an example here, because as I said, for a closer fitting garment, you are more likely to need bust darts. And while I'm kind of right on that, I could do with them, I could do without them for regular ease garments. For this, I think it would be helpful. So that's what I've been mostly working on because of this disaster over here. So this originally is what I thought I was going to do to use for the bust dart example. This is my Penelope top. This is a pattern by Sari Nordland. And it has become a disastrous. Look at these armholes. Like, that's down to like my waist. And I have already picked up all of the trim. So my stitch gauge is on track for this. My row gauge is a little off, but because of that, I shortened the armholes by 3/4 of an inch to make up for the fact that my row gauge was a little off. However, both armholes and the neckline looks okay. No real problems there. This is actually the front. Are all trimmed with applied I-cord. Now it calls for a 4-stitch I-cord. I did a 3-stitch because I'm using a slightly heavier yarn. So I am using Pearl Soho Santalina, which the label says is a fingering weight. I think is more like a sport weight. And it has been lovely. As usual, I don't remember what it's, cotton, viscose, linen, or something along those lines, I want to say, but I'll put it here. It has been lovely to work with, but it is heavier than the yarn called for in the pattern, so I went with a smaller stitch I-cord. That should not be a problem. The problem is that what the pattern says. So this is my first time working with the Sari Nordland pattern. Most of this is done so you do a little bit, a certain number of rows, and then it says knit till it's so many inches. So that's fine. I can make that adjustment there. There is no schematic, but she does give you an armhole depth measurement. It's not this. The problem is for this applied I-cord, the instructions say to pick up 1 stitch for every row. I knew that was a bad idea reading it. Never, even with an applied I-cord, have I ever picked up 1 for 1. I believe the reason it says that is because unlike a ribbing, so a ribbing comes out this way, and the length of your ribbing is actually going to be based on your ribbing stitch gauge, not your row gauge. So you usually pick up 3 for 4 because your stitch and row gauge are usually 3 for 4. It's approximately. The I cord, because it is lengthwise and she wanted it to be the same length, she's saying to pick up 1 for 1. But I still think that's a terrible idea. I still think the pickup rate should have been something like 3 out of 4. If and when I get around to redoing this, I will do the I cord another needle size down to pull it in. But I also think that pickup rate is just a poor idea. The I cord, even though you're doing length as opposed to a ribbing width, and even though you're going down a needle size, it just tends to be larger. And I think you need to pull in your armhole, and you actually don't want to match exactly that length. So having done all of this I cord, it's absurd. I'll stand up a little bit. So here's my thing way down here. I need to pull it all out and redo it. And I don't know when I'm going to get around to doing that, because I don't feel like it. I don't love applied I cord to begin with. I think it looks lovely. I don't love to knit it. And I've already done all of this, and I don't want to have to do it again. So I'm really sad about that. I don't know, the pattern has been fine. I mean, it's mostly stockinette with increases. There's some lace at the bottom, and that's presumably where maybe any kind of trickiness might come in. This part should be pretty straightforward, and the pattern has been easy to follow, but this is not working for me. I'm disappointed. This is like the second project I've tried to use this yarn for, and I really like the yarn, and the projects just are not working. So again, this is would be the Penelope top by Sari Nordland. She also just released the Penelope vest, which is identical, but it has a button band in the front. Do with that what you will. So far, as I said, no real problems following the pattern, but something is not right here, and these armholes are ridiculous. So fail for that. Oh, this color is green agave. I really think the color is beautiful. And fail number 2. I started a Fleur Cami. This is a pattern by Brianna Mason. It is a lovely pattern. It is, again, knit on very small needles. I think I'm using a 3, but I think it calls for a 2. And a fingering weight yarn. And I have been using Knit Picks Lindy Chain, which is fingering weight. The color here is called Clarity, and it is a 70% linen, 30% Pima cotton. And the thing is, I hate this yarn. I had never used it before. I am sad to be using it now. I don't like it. And I read a lot of reviews, and everyone, there were a few that were like, it's a little tough on your hands, but it's not a little tough on your, it's like painful on my hands. So we're going to have an impromptu yarn giveaway. My suggestion is that you do not enter this giveaway unless you have used this yarn before and know that you like it. It does appear to be discontinued by Knit Picks. So definitely, if you have used it before and you like it and you want to get your hands on some, I'm giving this away. I've got 3 unused balls. I'll throw this in if you want to unwind it and wind it back up or cake it back up and use it, and that gives you 4 balls, which is, let's see, 400 and 720 yards of fingering weight yarn, which would be lovely for the Fleur Cami or any other fingering weight summer project if you like using the Lindy Chain yarn. I don't like it. It is uncomfortable on my hands, and knowing that there are plenty of fingering weight summery yarns out there that I do enjoy, I just cannot continue using this. So if you want to win 3-ish balls of Lindy Chain and you're in the United States, because unfortunately international shipping right now is a disaster, So if you're in the United States, leave a comment. Tell me what you would do with this yarn, and I will pick someone and I will mail it out to you. But this yarn is not for me. The pattern, however, has been lovely. So again, this is another Pointelle top. It is by Brianna Mason. The other thing I will say is I don't think this yarn has enough stitch definition for this project, at least in this color. So you can see the eyelet. You really, really struggle to see what's happening here, which is some columns of seed stitch and like a knit column in between them. And then these, the eyelets, they don't open up a ton either. So I just don't think really this yarn has enough stitch definition for this project either. But it has been lovely. And I was looking at the projects for the Fleur Cami because I wanted to see if anybody else had used the Lindy chain. A couple people did. Darker colors, and it does have a better stitch definition, I think. You can see the patterning better. But as I was looking through them, I saw someone who made a beach cover-up with this pattern and just made it longer and may have added like some A-line shaping. And I loved that. So now I kind of want to do that and not in this yarn. Definitely I would not be able to use this yarn to make a whole beach cover-up. So that's kind of in my mind now. I like the idea of a beach cover-up. That certainly is not going to happen this summer. Maybe it would happen next summer if I get a new yarn. Obviously I already have the pattern, and the pattern is lovely. It has charts. Again, love a good chart. Very straightforward. This yarn just is not working. So that is unfortunately summer fail number 2. And those are all of the whips that I have been working on this month. All right, I do have a couple of acquisitions to show off this month. So Pearl Soho recently had a nice 25% off deal for, I don't know, some reason or other. And I wanted to pick up a couple projects worth of yarn to reward myself for surviving the last 2 weeks, which have been very hectic. My youngest son has finished elementary school, so he had his promotion, and then he had his promotion party, which I volunteered to help out at. We had just lots of general end of the school year stuff. We had Father's Day. My uncle got married. We had the anniversary of my mom's passing. It's been 10 years since my mom passed away, and we always do something for that. And then on top of all of that, my husband's family decided that this was a great time to come for a visit. It was not a great time to come for a visit, but nonetheless, they did. So it has just been a very hectic 2 weeks here to kick off the summer. And it's not going to get a lot better. We don't have anything this weekend, thank God. There is some kind of boat from Peru visiting Baltimore as some kind of celebration. We might go see that because my husband's from Peru. Other than that, we don't have it. We don't have any plans, parties, events, things. But then it's 4th of July, my niece's first birthday, my husband's 50th birthday. We go on vacation. Then we come back. We have a weekend where we don't have anything, and then it starts over. We've got while we're on vacation, it's my youngest son's birthday, but then it starts over, and we've got my mom's would-be birthday, my dad's birthday. My sister signed us up for goat yoga, and then school, summer just started. It feels like we are racing toward the finish line. But kicking it off with those 2 weeks was a bit much. So I got myself a reward. So the first yarn I got is for my ginger vest. So if you watched last week's video where I did a check-in on my progress on my 2026 goals, I was talking about the remaining projects that are on my Make 12 for the year, and a couple of them I still don't have yarn for. So I decided to remedy that, and I got some yarn for my ginger vest. So this yarn is Pearl Soho Good Wool. It is 100% Andean Highland wool in a sport to light worsted weight. It's lofty, but it feels a little rustic. However, this is a vest, so it goes over things, and that is fine. So this colorway is called Dark Spruce. I think that is beautiful, and I think it will be lovely. I think it's just a 2-ply, so I'm hoping it has good definition for the cabling that is in that vest. Oh, we shall see. I think especially making sure I'm working at a nice tight gauge will help that out. So I got enough of this for the ginger vest. That is on my make night, I believe, for next month. Not my make 9, my make 12. I believe for next month. It could be my July cast on since I finished something in June. I don't know if I will cast it on or not. I do now have the yarn for it, but I've been trying to make some smarter choices and not immediately casting on each month's project. And I do want to cast on both my Haley sweater and my Vera pullover. So I may push that back a little bit until August, but I do have the yarn for it now. And then the next one is not something that is on my make 12 or really anything. It is probably something that is going to go into my fall knitting plans. But I decided it was time for me to try the infamous linen quill that everybody has been talking about and absolutely loves. And so I got 2 shades of that for a Gramercy tee. That is a pattern by Tori Yu. I am, in general, not a big stripe person, but I do like the way the stripes look in that one. And I also tend to like small light stripes on a dark background. So that is what I've got. The linen quill is a 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen fingering weight yarn. You can see that's a short sleeve tee, so this would be something for maybe early fall. And the colors I got are Stillwater Blue and Weathered Blue. So you can see the different fibers. It's very apparent in the darker yarn, the way the different fibers take the dye differently. You got a lot less of that apparent in the lighter colored yarn. But I think these are going to make a nice pair for that Gramercy tee. I did knit the Manhattan hat, but I haven't tried any of Tori Yu's garment patterns, so I am really looking forward to that. Again, this one probably going to be in the fall knitting plans. Definitely not something I am planning to cast on anytime soon. This is, almost all animal fiber, Highland wool, alpaca. Those are very warm. Not something I'm going to be wearing until probably late October, November, but I thought it was a good time to get the yarn for it. So those are my acquisitions for this month. In theory, I should not have any acquisitions next month. I really need to rein in a little bit. In general, have been working to rein in my yarn spending, only buying yarn for specific projects. Recently, I have been spending a little bit more because I just didn't have a lot of summer fibers in my stash. I'm pretty burnt out on the summer knitting. I miss wool. However, the Knit Pearl Girl, by the time you're watching this, has released this. And I'm like obsessed. I love this. I absolutely love this. And I really want to make it, and I don't have any yarn for it. All of her samples are done in, I believe, the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. I believe the size that I would make needs like 3 balls, which is like, I don't know, a $30, $40 project, which is pretty reasonable. Really shouldn't be buying any more yarn. I really want to make this. All right, as I said, I am all on all of June 25th, really tired of summer knitting projects. I will finish, my pie camisole. I will probably try to redo the armholes on Penelope, but unless I do get that yarn for the Knit Pearl Girl's new pattern, Isabel, I'm probably going to be shifting back into some knitting for cooler weather. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of kind of a sneak peeks of upcoming projects. So the first is that this has been on my queue forever, and I finally want to cast on my Vare, and I did swatch for it. So you may have seen this in last week's video, but I love it. There we go. I have pretty much decided, so I was just kind of experimenting up here with this, but I'm going to go with this color palette, no without the green. So right in here is like it looks pretty good on camera. A little less contrast in real life, but it's a dark red in there. And I was trying to decide between that and the green, but I'm definitely going to go with the red. As you can see, there is no, so I am going to do these kind of balloon sleeves. There's no color work on the cuff. If I'm feeling ambitious, I might throw just a row of color, a round of color work in there and then put the green in there. But for this part and the body, I'm just going to stick with these colors. So it's a brown, orange, red, yellow, and a sort of an off-white. Very, very 70s. So I've got this color palette worked out. I have all of the yarn for this. That is probably going to be cast on. I might do it before the end of the month. I do have, as of today, 5 days left. We'll see. We'll see if I'm going to cast it on. If not this month, definitely in July. For this part, so let's see, where are you? This is a lovely book. If you like color work, you should, this is lovely. Beautiful stuff. So this is the Shetland Trader Volume 3 from Gudrun Johnson, and that's beautiful. So she has there's another one in here that's kind of similar, but it's like a little dress. So if you like that kind of look. So all of the charts are in black and white, and you know, she's got like a couple color palettes along the side using, I don't know, probably Shetland Spindrift or Jamieson's of Shetland or whatever. And she also has on the side, this is for that stripe pattern on the body. So I went ahead and just redid my own charts using the colors that I am using, because if I sat here and tried to use a black and white chart and remember which color was, that would never happen. So I did go ahead and redo the charts for myself, which I think was a smart move. We'll see when I actually cast on. But I think for this striping on the bottom, I'm just going to wing it. I don't really want to plan it out. I definitely want it to be a little bit lower contrast than this. Like I want to stick with mostly like the darker colors, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I'm just going to wing that part. You can also just do it in like a solid color, but I want to add a little color there, but I think this is a little too busy for me. So that is probably going to be my next cast on, because technically I have cast on my Haley sweater, but it just looks like this. So I just cast it on last night and worked one wrong side row. That was all I did. This is a wool cotton blend. It is the Durham Natura Robinson. I think it's more cotton than wool. Yeah, so, oh no, it's 70% wool and 30-ish% recycled cotton. So it is, you know, getting back a little bit into the wool, still got some cotton in there. This is still going to be a project for cooler weather, 70% wool with long sleeves, no matter, you know, if there's cotton in there or not, is not something I'm going to be wearing until probably October, although my sister and I do our wine weekend, which is in early September, and it's up in the mountains, and sometimes it is cool enough there for a little wool, especially at night, so we'll see. But this, I needed to get some wool back on the needles, and I went ahead and cast this on. So the Haley sweater by Irene Lynn. This is also on my Make 12. Technically, according to my own rules, I could have cast this on, I think in May, and I just took a step back because I had so many other projects on the needles. But those are the two projects that I think are going to be getting most of my focus over the next few weeks once I finish that pie camisole. And then we'll see. I don't know what I'm going to do with that Penelope. I also want to refocus on a little bit of sewing. I really haven't been doing much sewing since I finished that dress that came out much too big. I did cut out 2 projects, but I don't really have anything to show you. I usually only cut and then sew, but I did go ahead and cut out 2 projects because I thought while all of our visitors are here, I might want to have that, and I used the dining room table for the cutting, which we needed. So I decided to cut it out, both projects out ahead of time, and I haven't done anything with them. They're still sitting there. It's because I need to draw in like the bust darts and others. I hate that part of the whole process. So it's still just sitting there. I also have to, like, the one is a dress, and I need to cut out like this weirdly shaped piece of interfacing for the front. It's just such a pain. I don't like the interfacing part either. So I really haven't been doing any sewing, but I do have those 2 projects cut out. That will be hopefully something that is getting my focus. So hopefully next month we'll have a little bit of sewing content as well. All right, friends, that is all I have to share with you this month. Don't forget, if you enjoy knitting with Knit Picks Lindy Chain and would like to win a few balls, leave a comment. Let me know what you would knit with it. I will ship it out to you because unfortunately it is just not working for me. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's video. Any of the yarns I mentioned from Knit Picks or Purl Soho, if you are interested in checking them out, please check out the affiliate links that are in the description box. That is greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed this video or took anything from it, I hope you will give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. New knitting videos here every Saturday. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Media Peruana, and I will see you soon in another video.